So the other week I was talking about how I was talking about balance. I was talking about how a lot of what knocks us off balance mentally are things that are not on most people's radar. So we're always focused on these broad things like the situation and resolving the situation, but often not focused on what's actually arising in the present, like this sensation in my body. Yeah. Anybody notice a sensation in your body when the dog was barking? Yeah. Yeah. You had sensations, but did you notice them as in, I am aware of this sensation, yeah? Like in real time? So then we have a reaction to that sensation, yeah? Which is not good or bad, it's just good to notice. So that was the theme for last time. It's like how much of what's knocking us off balance is actually behind what we're usually looking at. Usually we're looking out here. Oh, here it is. Yeah? But what's knocking us off balance is a sensation or an emotion. I feel angry or sad or afraid, yeah, anxious. And it's that state that knocks us. Right? Or you have a thought, and that thought takes you on a journey, yeah, that you didn't want to go on, or what have you. And so I was just bringing attention to this domain of what's arising in here, and how important that is, how being in relationship to what is here in the mind and the body, the stuff that's not in the usual curriculum for life. Right? The curriculum for life is always about how to get out there and go do the thing and be more or be better. But this curriculum is so important. It's like, oh, how am I in relationship to this domain? Okay, so that was the theme from last time. So hopefully for this week and over this week, you've been noticing the things that arise in your own mind, in your own body, yeah, and you notice your relationship with it. How am I being with this event? Thoughts are a mental event that can be witnessed in awareness. Okay? So building on that theme or in that same domain, just want to use a particular word today, and that's why I wore my State of Iowa shirt. It's like I shouldn't end the suspense so quickly because people are always like, "What state is that? Is it Massachusetts? Is it Pennsylvania?" It's part of why it's fun to wear this shirt. Yeah, because only people from Iowa and the surrounding states know what it is. So, but the reason I wear this shirt. I mean, I wear it all the time anyway because I like it. And my wife's from Iowa, and her mom provides me with lots of Iowa shirts. And they're great, and I wear them a lot. So, but aside from that, it's a really useful way of pointing to something that's not usually part of our conversation, which is that we are experiencing states all through the day. What was so funny about that?
That was like a classic dad joke. Like we're experiencing states as you're talking about Iowa.
I'm a dad. What can I say? I didn't even realize that was the funny part. Yeah. So, that's like the ultimate dad joke. Dad! Come on, Dad! But anyway, so here I am with states. So you see, you'll never forget this, which is why I wear the shirt. Right? You will never forget it. So this is we are always looking through states. This state you can actually look through because it's hollow. You can't see through my chest, but you can see. So it doesn't have the stuff in it, but we're always looking through states, right? You feel sad or a little down, and you look through that state at the world. How's the world look? It looks sad. It looks bleak. It looks depressing. Yeah. You look through a state of fear, and how does the world look? It looks scary, doesn't it? You're afraid, and everything is scary. You look through a state of desire, and everything is desirable. all you see is what's desirable. Yeah? You look through a state of aversion, and all you can think is, get away from me. Everything. So anyway, you're experiencing states all the time. When you meditate, you become aware of this directly. But we don't usually notice states as states. So in the domain of the things I was talking about last time, some of which are states, we want to start bringing awareness to both being able to observe states as things that are happening. This is happening. This is happening. Yeah. So now it's not behind what's happening, right? Have you ever had somebody arguing with you about politics or something, and all you can think about is, how are you doing? Are you okay? You know? Like, have you ever been having a conversation, you're like, this is not what this conversation is about. Like, let's stop pretending that we're having a conversation about content. What's going on with you? Right? Don't you have that feeling all the time? With people in your life and on TV? Right? It's like, hey. So it's not part of the conversation, but it's so important to notice states as states. When we start to become aware of states, we start to notice that states too are changing based on conditions. So when you're not, this is again in the same vein as what we were talking about last time. When there's a sensation and you're not aware of it, you end up looking through that. You just feel your body's uncomfortable. You start looking through discomfort. You have an emotion, you look through that emotion at the world. When there's no awareness, you're not aware that that's shaping you. Right? You actually believe it. This is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the world. I'm seeing things the way they are. You don't realize you're looking through, depression-colored glasses, or what's that word? Insufficiency-colored glasses. There's not enough. Or you're looking through need-colored glasses, or you're looking through rage-colored glasses. Right? Or you're looking through just discomfort-colored glasses. It's so good to see. We're looking through something. So mindfulness, or what we're practicing, allows you to notice the state that's present, to know it directly. It doesn't mean, and sometimes you may literally be witnessing it. It's appearing to you. So it's not so much you're looking through it. You're like, that becomes the object of your attention. And that can be very liberating to notice, the state that's present, it's not me. I'm aware of it. It's not the totality. It's an aspect of what's appearing. That's super useful. A lot of people, they don't have, if you ask them, they'd say they knew that, but they don't have experiential knowing of that. They just think, it's like, that's a state. It's so useful to be able to know that and observe it directly. This is a state of boredom. This is a state of loneliness. If you don't know it's a state in that moment, you could just go think about your loneliness and build a whole life story out of it and live in that for 5 or 10 years. Because this is this feeling, this state is present, and you can witness it. Just that alone is huge. You can just track your energetic states through the day and notice how, depending on the level of energy, the world looks different, or the content looks different, or what seems possible is different. Something as impersonal as energy. Who's it? Right? So, this state and the state. So just another, I'm giving you different language, and that's part of what teaching is about. It's using language to help illuminate what's here in a way that's useful for our practice. Okay? So the discourse from the Buddha, which many of you have heard me talk about because it's such a useful teaching. And it's called, in the middle-length discourses of the Buddha, the discourse on one fortunate attachment. Fortunate attachment. It's like something that's good to be attached to. Yeah, and the way they mean attached in the Buddhist term is something means clinging. It doesn't mean attached like I'm attached to you, we're married or you're my child. That's a good kind of attachment. Okay? This confuses people, so I want to say that. It's just like, oh. Yeah. We had some friends over and they have a kid my son's age, and afterwards my son asked, "Do you love me or that kid more?" Isn't that tender? I said, "I love you more." That's true. And also important for him to hear. Yeah, I don't love some random kid who came over who I think is great more than you. You're my son. So anyway, so I just want to say that for all of you who can get bent a little bit, sometimes tweaked around the attachment word. So like, what do you mean? Are we not supposed to be attached? This is a little bit qualitatively different. I won't get into that in depth right now, but just to say, one fortunate attachment, it's kind of unusual in a Buddhist text to say like, be attached. So, but the thing to be attached to, and I'll tell you the poem in a second, is to know the presently arisen state. That's the fortunate attachment. To know the presently arisen state. That's a good thing to be attached to. I want to know the presently arisen state. Okay? So think about that for a moment. Sometimes you have to get behind things that just seem like, oh, okay. There's so many Buddhist texts that Buddha taught for so many years. There's only one fortunate attachment. All those teachings, and one, all right, might be a good one to pay attention to. One. And that's the one. So if you need any motivation to like actualize this teaching in your life, that might be it. So like, okay. If I don't take Will's word for it, let me take the Buddha's word for it. One fortunate attachment, to know the presently arisen state, and to know it and be sure of it. So I'll tell you the poem, and this would be a good one to memorize, right? Because there's actually something about memorizing certain teachings that's very powerful. Now that I'm saying this, let's hope I get it right. Because sometimes I forget. I did memorize it. But I've known it for years, but who knows what will happen today. But anyway, my point is, when you memorize a teaching, it's inside of you. That's true with poems. It's true with so many things. It's just like, it gets inside of you, and then it can live inside of you and grow inside of you, and also can arise in different situations. Just the psyche can bring it forward. So that's a wonderful thing to do. But so this is the fortunate attachment. There's a little poem embedded in the middle of this text. It says, "Let not a person revive the past, or on the future build their hopes. For the past is a memory, and the future has not been reached." It says, "Instead with insight, let them see each presently arisen state. Let them know this and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably." Then there's another section about how death is coming. So like, you better effing do it now. So like, yeah. So I'm going to say that again, just so you can hear it. So, let not a person revive the past, or on the future build their hopes. For the past is a memory, and the future has not yet been reached. Instead, with insight, let them see each presently arisen state. Let them know this and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. So I say, then a little later it says like, tomorrow death may come. And so there's always that little rousing. So it's kind of a powerful teaching. And it's also a great guide for practice. So of all the things that have shaping power, to know the state that's arising, be able to witness it in awareness. If you're seeing, so sometimes you'll just be seeing the state and you'll feel like, oh, when there's the seeing of the state or the awareness of the state, there's space around it. You may experience this, like there's a space, there's spaciousness around it. So you don't feel like you're in it. Whatever, it's like there's a spaciousness and then there's the state. Sometimes it may feel like that. At other times, it's immersive. You're in the state. The state is everywhere, but there's lucidity within it. You're aware within it. It's like being aware in a dream or aware with the glasses on. It's like, I know the glasses are on and I'm seeing it this way. But then it is really different than not seeing it. Really different. So this gets at what we start to touch into as we watch states come and go, is we start to relax into being itself. Being awareness. That should be like one word with a hyphen or a slash. Being has awareness as an aspect of its functioning. So being is being, presence, and awareness is the knowing quality. It's part of it. As we watch states come and go, that which allows the state to be known or appear starts to become, we rest in it. You may not see it, you don't see it as something, and yet, just like you don't see your own eyes, but yet we're seeing through them. And that allows for a relaxing and easing within experience itself. We're not identified so much with what's arising, even when what's arising feels total. This body is in this state, right? Because it's not just states of emotion or energy, but there's also a state of the body. This body, it can be in all kinds of states. It can be breaking down, it can be sick. Yeah? It can be in a death or a dying process. Yeah? And it will. It will. If not now, it will. And so this training, somebody was asking me that the other day, why? They're saying, well, I'm sick. They were sick with like a cold or something, or like some mild flu. They say, like, do you practice when you're sick? I say, yes. I say, why? It's so uncomfortable. I said, well, it's training for dying. But it's not just training for dying, it's training for all of life. Life is not a picnic in all of its phases, right? There's a lot of suffering and intensity and even just the aging. So as we are present with all of these states, we start to touch into an aspect of being which is not bound by states. An aspect of what we are that knows conditionality, that knows what has a beginning and an end. I have to point to that each time. The basis that allows this to be appearing, that allows states to be known moment by moment. As we know states and we stop being so in their grip, so identified with them as me, as this is the way the world, we start to relax into some aspect of what we are that's very hard to name. It's actually impossible to name. And yet, boy, do I have to talk about that, because it's the most beautiful part. It's the most important, the most fundamental, because it's your nature. Your nature that's been here the whole time, this whole time, everything you've been through, this nature, which is it's not untainted, uncorrupted by anything that has happened to you, with you, in you. This nature that all experience is appearing within and as a function of. So there's all kinds of interesting discourses in various traditions. So it's kind of pointing to this unnameable nature. Unnameable and yet undeniable. And so part of the value in knowing the impermanence of states and in knowing the current state, part of it is in just the liberation from the bondage of being totally identified with whatever state is happening, thinking that's just the way things are. And then another aspect is the gradual relaxing into that which is not coming and going. And you may not experience that as a something. In fact, you probably won't. It's not a something, and yet it is. So, I always find it hard to talk about that aspect, and yet I always want to. It's so important. I think that's part of what keeps people, part of what people recognize in the teaching, even if you don't understand it. It's like you kind of don't buy the PR on some level that you're just the thoughts in your head and the feelings that are arising in your body. That you're not just your history and the story that you've made out of yourself, that you've concocted for yourself or that other people told you. You're not just that. You may be that too. Yeah? So. So one of the beautiful things, and this is kind of a dharma joy that's hard to describe. It's like a beautiful thing to just watch states appearing and manifesting and being and fading away and new states coming. It can be a joy in that. It's hard to describe that. Not joy like, woohoo, like people sometimes like, where's the joy? How come I'm not cheering when I see like sadness arise or fear, or closing down or kind of a curling up as a state? How come I'm not like, woohoo? Am I doing it wrong? No. But there could be, it's the freedom, the palpable, even just like a little bit of degrees of freedom around experience. It's a big deal. Yeah. It's very worthwhile. And that's why the Buddha calls that fortunate attachment. Yeah. So during this week, as you practice, watch your states come and go. So I only have an Iowa shirt. If I was a good teacher, I'd have a different shirt every day. It's like a different state, And actually, if I was a really honest teacher, I'd change my shirt every second. So it's like,
what size are you?
What size? So that would be too gimmicky. But it's actually important to notice, because what happens when we start paying attention is we actually start to notice how rapidly states are changing. I mean, you don't know that when you're in them. They feel total. And when you're not aware, you don't notice that they change. It's like every movie you're in. It's like a new movie every second. And every movie you're in, you're like, this is the movie. It's like, this is the way it is. Oh, now this is the way it is. Oh, now this is the way it is. When somebody's watching you from the outside, they'd say, you're totally insane. And yet, you don't experience it that way because there's nothing outside. There's no one outside watching you. And yet, when awareness starts to be present, something is watching. It may not be outside, but there's something watching. There's something that's on in the midst of everything. I remember a phase when I first started to notice that, when I would notice there's something on, something was aware even when I would space out. I would space out and something noticed it and was like still there. And then I'd come back and something was still on. Okay. I remember at that phase, I noticed I didn't feel lonely ever. Because there was something here. It was weird. So something here starts to be an affectionate presence in the midst of everything. Anything. All the time. Yeah. That is here. It's not something you create through practice, something we start to notice. We start to notice it is here. This is here. Before, it doesn't register as anything, just like space doesn't register as anything to you. Actually, it does more than this. It's like, so, okay. There's something here all the time through all your experiences, but you haven't noticed it yet. You haven't let yourself rest and notice the changing conditions. And that's why everybody's always seeking and searching. Everybody's always seeking and searching out ahead, out in the future. And not just for basic things that you need, but seeking for some kind of something you're missing. And yet what we're missing is we're failing to notice what's here. Too busy to notice our own nature. Too busy to notice what's here in the midst of all the movement. What's here with all the states coming and going, coming and going. And so freedom evades us, or we evade it. Maybe that's a better way to say it. We constantly run away from freedom because we're always looking in the wrong place, out ahead. So, okay. I'll say one other thing, because it's kind of important to say. When this affectionate presence, when you sort of rest in this as your nature, all of these parts of you, all of these aspects of you, you can leave alone. You can let be. You can let life move. And stop tinkering with everything all the time. Okay, enough. Enough about me. What do you want to ask me? So anyway, we will, let's dialogue a little bit about this topic, yeah? Or about what you're noticing in your practice. And if you have dad jokes you want to share, we could include those too. Yeah, please.
When you said the tinkering thing,
Mm-hmm.
You could just leave it alone, let it be.
Mm-hmm.
I initially thought, well, I think that pertains to other people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That you see stuff arising in them, and it's not your job.
Yeah, so when I said the thing about, I'll just repeat it. When I said the thing about tinkering, you thought that may apply to other people in one's life. Like maybe I don't need to tinker with them so much. Yeah. So, one thing I was talking about with somebody earlier, the tricky thing about teaching this stuff is that whenever I'm saying some of these things, I'm also hearing how it's wrong.
No, in addition to.
Yeah, in addition to, no, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. And I'm thinking, that's right and it's wrong. Just like with the dog barking before. It's like, we could let it be and we could take action. So which one is it? And it could be both. So I think you're absolutely right. And we're doing so much tinkering with other people that is really exhausting and extra. And a lot of it is us taking responsibility for what is not ours. Yeah. It's so good to see that. And it's really also not honoring of other people a fair amount of the time, right? It's like, I meditate, and I happen to know what's good for you. Awareness can make you even more insufferable. Right? It's like, I'm seeing quite clearly now. Let me tell you everything I'm seeing about you. So the hard part is that Yeah, so yes, we can start to not tinker so much unconsciously. And then we can choose our moments, just like with yourself. It's not like, oh, you don't tinker, that means you don't exercise or take care of yourself. That's not what I'm saying, right? It's a certain quality of tinkering, this kind of endless self-improvement, which is just like extra and unnecessary and not serving any really deep purpose. Yeah. So that doesn't mean you can't take action. I think the clarity or the wisdom or seeing clearly allows you to kind of know the difference, right? Know, okay, I'm not going to go tinker on this thing, and now I'm going to say this thing to you at the risk of it not being useful, but I'm choosing to do it. Then that's fine too, right? So, but I think, yeah, it's this endless tinkering. It's really great to notice all of that extra. What we can't, and a lot of that's also not being able to tolerate your own sensations, right? You're doing these things, and I'm having a lot of sensations about it. I can't tolerate them, so I'm going to talk to you about it. And then I don't have any sensations anymore, and you have a lot of sensations. I mean, that's real, right? And even, Robert Sapolsky talks about that, it's like a neuroscientist and evolutionary, he's like a primatologist, right? And he has that great line, because he wrote that book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. But he also has a newer book, but he has this great line. He says, talking about primates, he says that you can prevent an ulcer by giving an ulcer. And it's just like a depressing fact. It's like you can not have an ulcer by being mean to somebody, then you feel better. But anyway, part of what I'm saying is about when somebody else is doing something, a lot of times what's hard to tolerate about it is hard to tolerate the sensations in your own body. Right? And that makes you say things even when it's not appropriate, useful, what have you. So yeah, it's a wonderful freedom to realize I don't need to go fix everybody else. That's not the same as neglect. It's a wonderful freedom. You can still be aware and still take action, but it's not compulsive. Yeah, I don't have to fix everybody around me in order to be it all okay. Because man, talk about an impossible task. Talk about setting yourself up for endless frustration and suffering. Yeah, welcome to everybody's life. There's people just trying to do that. Yeah, please.
When you're talking about this topic of like feeling something and not necessarily need to tinker and all of that, it makes me think about things in my, like I have really strong like reactions to things,
Mm-hmm.
strong emotions, and so they can feel really wrong or feel really uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not a clear solution for it in like
Mm-hmm.
the immediate moment.
Yeah.
So, like for example, like I recently started a new job that's like definitely a step forward in my career, but I knew when I was like in the process that there were things about it that were going to be hard for me and like not a
Mm-hmm.
great fit, but it was like the best opportunity in the moment. And I shared about something similar to this like 6 months ago with a different job, but anyways, and I remember you said you were like, remember this feeling? And then that kind of haunted me when I accepted this new job, because I was like, oh no, it's the same feeling that Will said to remember, but I'm kind of doing something with it. But but sometimes in life, like there actually are concrete situations where you're like, I actually need to earn money, and this actually is like the thing that's like,
Not sometimes, a lot of the time. Yeah.
I think where I'm going with this is, I notice sometimes that I'll like be freaking out about something I don't like in a situation that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's not a clear action to take.
Yeah.
Like it's more of like a life plan. Like okay, I'm gonna build toward this like year, 2-year goal or something like that. It's not like today I'm gonna do this thing
Sure.
to make me feel better.
Sure.
I don't know exactly where this is going, but yeah, that's something I'm thinking about.
Is there a question in there about?
I think it's almost like I'm looking for reassurance that it's okay.
Okay,
To like not feel great about something, but not know.
but not take action?
Or not, for there not to be a clear, to not know what to do.
Yeah. Is that okay to be aware that something's not a great situation or not be in an uncomfortable state and to not know what to do about it.
Like there's not
Yeah.
always something that will make it better.
Well, yeah. I think that is that okay? It's okay.
Somehow I
Yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah, no,
to pray for myself.
good. I think that's important. I think a lot of what happens here is people are asking for reassurance that their experience is okay. I think that's true, and that's actually a good thing to do. Yeah, because a lot of times it's hard to know yourself, right? And I've had that experience so many times over the years practicing where something will arise, and despite all the instructions that I've heard, some part of me says, is this okay that this is happening? I mean, it's so. I think a lot of the time, what the states that arise are in relation to conditions that aren't going to change right in this moment and that you can't do anything about. And that's partly why it's so useful to be able to be present with those states. Yeah. Or even a state like you know the current condition, but you don't know what to do yet. That happens a lot. I know I'm not happy in this moment. I know I'm not happy in these conditions, but I don't know what to do yet. What a lot of people do who don't have a practice, they either run away impulsively, or they shut down the knowing that this is not a great situation, and they just stay in it until it gets really, really bad. Those are two options. They're easy to do. You bolt, and so, people can bolt everybody's bolted early from something that you might regret. Yeah, you just hit the eject button because it was too complicated to be, even though there wasn't a solution yet. Yeah, or you just shut down what you knew and you stayed, and you felt the consequence. Everybody can relate to that. And I think what's so powerful about being able to be in presence and awareness is you can tolerate not knowing and stay awake. I'm in this, I don't know, and yet I'm aware. And that's so much different. Then you're aware, you're open to like something new emerges, or the scales tip a little bit, or you're open to learning and to seeing, and that's such a dynamic place. Right? Yeah, does life unfold on our timetable? No, it doesn't. Does knowing what to do unfold on our timetable? No, often not. Right? Everybody's like, I'm ready for certainty. Well, you're not ready yet, because you don't have it. So I think that's a wonderful topic, and don't check out, so that you stay aware. And then maybe you'll realize, oh, now I'm ready. Now I'm going to take this action. Now I'll take this action. Now I realize I'm exactly where I need to be. It was too edgy for me to notice that yet. It was too new, or I was too outside of my comfort zone, so I wasn't sure. Right? I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Just back in a set of comments ago, you were saying about this watching out for let me tell you what's wrong with you, I see so clearly, and that's sort of
Yeah.
pull back from the reflex to change others and just take stock of your own state.
Yeah, I was talking about pulling back from the reflex to tell other people
Yeah.
what you see about them.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, I guess I just want a bit more thought on, we have a responsibility to be there for others.
Sure,
So
totally. Yeah.
when I think about, for example, the situation of if you have a loved one who's really struggling with depression,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
you can't take the blame for it,
Mm-hmm.
but
No,
how do you skillfully approach the situations where, no, actually, it is that there's something wrong with that person.
So I'll just repeat that so everybody could hear. So the comment was about, there are a lot of times when you see somebody, maybe it's a loved one, who's in some state, and it's actually important for you to help them, or you could, and if you're just being okay in yourself, what's the benefit of that? Yeah.
The one way I'll modify it is that it is such a gray area because you can tell yourself that you need to intervene in someone else's life and you're selling yourself a bag of goods.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
of course,
you
yeah.
actually do. So I think I'm just more curious, like
How do you distinguish? Yeah, I don't know. You know, that one's, it's sort of impossible to tell anybody, you know, but I think that's, you know, when you say that, and I feel this all the time, I already said it once tonight, but whenever I say something in this realm of how to approach things, I'm almost always aware of the way in which what I'm saying is wrong a fair amount of the time, or it's only part of the truth. Actually, everything I say is only partly true, or it's totally true some of the time, which is maybe the same thing. And so that's why I actually really like the dialogue part where we talk to each other, because then we can talk particulars, and you can actually hear it. There are different particulars for different situations, but I think that's, you know, can we ever be sure we have perfect clarity? You know, we have to live and learn, and we learn by taking action. So it's good to get to know your patterns. The more self-awareness you live with, the more you start to realize, what are my tendencies? Am I defaulting to kind of like trying to fix everybody? Or am I avoiding telling people the truth that's really important for them to hear? And all kinds of mix in between. So of course, you know, it's sort of like wisdom decides or delusion decides. You know, we always think, I decide. But actually, there's either a state of clarity or a state of delusion, usually. You know, I'm in the grip of some, you've had people do that, where they're in the grip of some ideology, whether it's a self-help ideology or some personal weird ideology or some religious ideology, and they come and talk to you about things. And it always feels weird, because you're like, okay, you're talking to me from something. Yeah. But I think, yeah, so we have to get to know our own tendencies, and then we have to act on our clearest sense of things. And I just think the more you know yourself in this way, the better chance you have of noticing when you're in some compulsive grip. I need you to be okay so I can be okay. You know, once you're okay, I'll relax, so really get over yourself. Or when it's really like, this is compassion, and I feel like I need to say something now. I don't know if it's the right thing, but I'm gonna, yeah. And so it's just such a double-edged sword, even the thing you said about depression, because so often what's so hard about for people when they're feeling depressed is that it's not that other people, it's that other people can't be with them without trying to fix them. And that's so intolerable, a state to have people trying to fix you, that actually the help, they're alienated from help, which is like just being with another human. That's true with people in a lot of different states. You know, like, you're so anxious. I don't want you to be anxious. I think it would be better for you to not to be anxious, and that may be true. So let me tell you why you shouldn't be anxious. You know, and I'm going to talk really fast. As opposed to just, I'm going to be here with you, you're anxious. I'll put my hand on your back or your just shoulder, and just here we are, only if you know the person well. Consent in this kind of care is important too. It's like, okay, so you put your hand on it. Yeah, okay, here we are together. So what the skillful action is, who knows? That could really vary from situation to situation. But it is really, it's like all you have, and then you can learn from, you just learn from the experience. And the next situation will be different. That's what's so wonderful about life, right? It's never the same thing. Even though there's a lot of patterns and that you can see, it's like, it's never the same. And this is why I think that kind of like self-knowing is so valuable. So I don't know if that speaks to it, but yeah. And it's a conundrum all the time in teaching this stuff, because so much of the time what I'm teaching you is the thing you haven't practiced yet. So I don't feel like, that's why I'm not constantly talking to you about what to do in your life. It's like, I want you to practice being with your own mind and body and understanding this territory. And I understand that action will flow from that. a different kind of action, action that has a different quality. And we talk about that too. But so much of what we're practicing is the under-cultivated thing. Yeah. So, please.
So, I've been noticing periods of, I guess there's a distinction between like tinkering and choice
Mm-hmm.
state, and I wonder if I am tinkering or choosing, and if that's possible to just choose your state. I've been having experiences where sitting, I'm like, oh, I could go into this place where I get bored and my body aches, but I recognize that that's going to happen if I do this thing, and so I'm going to actually kind of shift my state consciously, and I don't know if that is along the lines of tinkering, or kind of just like choosing to just like make things feel pleasant so I can be more present in a way that might be.
How do you make it more pleasant?
Well, that's the thing too, is I feel like I lately have some access, not always, but there's a certain way where like I'll relax my body, I'll take a deeper breath, and then I'll kind of just like sink back, and it's very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And lately I've just had access to that choice.
Mm-hmm. And what makes you go the other way, towards like lethargy and dullness and pain?
Either I don't have access to that or I forget that that's an option.
Mm-hmm. To relax and to...
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm seeing it coming, and then I don't know whether it's like I'm seeing it coming and then I'm like being averse to it, or I'm just like, oh, that's actually going to not help me present.
It kind of doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter in the sense that like, you know, like say you're sitting, right? And you just, even just like adjusting your posture. You know, sometimes people are like, I can't move. You know, like, but your body's moving all the time, even when you're sitting still. So it's sort of like, it can move. It's just moving. Let it move in awareness. So what I would say to you, because I know you've practiced a bit, so this is particularly for you and for others who have some background, don't make it either or. Deciding happens in awareness. Choosing happens in awareness. If it's you choosing, you will lose awareness. If choosing chooses, it can be just included. Let choosing choose. Let wisdom choose. And just watch the whole thing. Or be aware in the whole thing. So, it livens it up, it quiets it down. It doesn't have an obsessive quality. When I'm choosing, do I go there? Do I go here? I don't know. What should I do? I'll liven it up. Is that okay? I don't know. It's like, that's me choosing. You know? Whereas the choosing, she's like, okay, just like this. It doesn't matter. Just like you're meditating, just let meditating meditate. Just let it be happening in awareness. So that's sort of very useful because you can live like that. I mean, you're making choices all the time. Like every micro moment there's choice being made. But just let choosing choose and watch choosing choose. So wisdom chooses. When you have conditions, you notice you can play with conditions. Yeah? Tinkering has a quality to it when I use that term. It might be the same action, but tinkering is like, I'm going to get it just right. I'm going to get it just right. And it has this quality of like this. That's in my mind. Yeah? So yeah, don't make it either or. This is so important because this is where you go beyond the doer. And the sense of being the doer is always the point of tension. In all great, like peak performance, the doer falls away. It's just doing. There's not like the sense of like, I'm choosing it. It's happening too fast for you to operate that way. Yeah, you have to rely on stuff, on just choosing to choose. Yeah? And so you can live like that as long as you don't make it all about choosing. So a lot of people, I think, when they're meditating, they're too busy doing the technique. In the beginning, you have to, because your mind is so unruly, you have to like bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. You know, you have to kind of like have a little bit of extra something. But as I know you've practiced for long, you've sat retreats, it's like now you can just let it happen in awareness. Don't make it either or. Yeah? Don't be stuck in the doer. So the body walks, let it walk. It's not like you're disconnected from it. Just let walking walk. Your body knows how to walk. As soon as you try walking, it gets complicated because there's actually a lot of things involved. And it's so many things involved in walking. Sometimes people do that. They do walking meditation, then they come back and say like, I'm having trouble walking. So say like, we're not practicing walking meditation, like how to walk. We're practicing meditation while walking. So maybe we'll reframe that for you. It's like, what are you doing there? You're reifying the doer. You're just like strengthening the doer. I'm doing really slow walking. I'm really doing it slowly. Okay? So yeah, we don't want to do it. Let your body walk. You can let it walk slowly so you can let awareness catch up to it a little bit. But that's really important. That's why we can be mindful in talking and listening. That's why we can be mindful in dynamic situations. Yeah. And it's so nice to let the body just be free and just choose. Yeah. But there's awareness present too. It's not just unconscious the choosing. That's like the robot. You just let it loose. I know you feel that way a fair amount of the time. You're just like, that was my conditioning operating, and it did a reliable job. Meaning it reliably did what conditioning does. Yeah? So, but once there's awareness in the picture, that starts changing things little by little. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Oh yeah, Charlie.
But it always stimulates so many things. So I listen to some Robert Sapolsky talks.
Can you say that a little louder? You listen to Robert Sapolsky talk about the compulsivity of religion. I see.
The conclusions he makes are sort of true, but then there's new studies that if people do the same movement and make the same sound, whether it's line dancing or you're saying a prayer, that the group effect that they find increases your tolerance of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just be talking about that someone's doing it 108 times, that it's an excessive thing. But there's some wisdom in that he's, well, he came from an Orthodox Jewish background, so he's sort of taking apart that, but there's, not that I would recommend it, but any simple thing, like line dancing, they're doing this way and saying some phrases.
Sure.
It increases your tolerance of pain. It's interesting.
Sure.
But the conclusion he made was not the ultimate thing.
Yeah. This is like a bigger topic about, like, everything we do has effects on our mind, right? And there's a lot of stuff in, even in all traditions that are like things people do that have an effect on the mind. Things people do that are not part of a tradition have an effect on the mind. And it can have a very beneficial effect or whatever. For me, the piece that's so important for what we're doing is this awareness piece. Yeah? Because what we're fundamentally doing is actually not about the forms. The forms are all in service in this practice of what we're doing, of stabilizing our own attention a little bit, unifying our own, sort of like getting here, basically. Arriving where we already are, being present and stably present enough to witness what's arising in the mind. Yeah? So all of those forms are in the service of wakefulness and clear seeing. That's the way I see it. Once you understand what's at the essence of it, which is this, what I was speaking about earlier, is just like, then you can do all those relative practices, bowing however many times, and it's all part of, it's not just getting things ready. It's all just like you can do anything. It's just an expression of wakefulness. You can ring a bell. You can say hello. It's just like life unfolding. So it's kind of important, the function of those rituals that you're saying. Sure, they all have effects. But part of what's that? Positive effects. Sure, they all have positive effects. But I think what I want to just say is that the core of this is pointing to something that's beyond those positive effects. Because like exercise has positive effects. Yeah? I'm sure everything has positive effects, but the purpose of the practices here are to prepare the mind to recognize its own nature and to see deeply into the nature of things. That's what we're doing. All those other practices, as weird as they can seem, are preparation for that. Even like in tradition where there's like deference to the guru, what's it supposed to be? The guru is the embodiment of your nature. And you feel you can recognize that from in relationship. Yeah? So it's not supposed to be about somebody. Yeah? It's your nature. That's what you're supposed to recognize, your nature. So it's sort of important because people who don't have that perspective, who don't understand the essence, they can get caught up in a lot of forms. They can get pretty crazy. Yeah, it's one of the things that's supposed to fall away at a certain point in practice is this dependence and attachment to rites and rituals. The rituals do not contain, even though everything contains, but do not in some special way contain anything ultimate. Yeah. Even all the wonderful Buddhist rituals, they don't. Not any more than any gesture does. Kind of important. So we could talk about that for a long time. So sure, everything has positive effects. And what we're here to recognize and to point to is something that transcends all the forms, even though we use the forms, because it's something that is part of your nature. It's here throughout all the activities you do. Just like it's here through all the states that you experience, all the different activities you do, the sacred and the profane. What is here through all of those states? Waking and dreaming, even when you're not dreaming. What is it that's here? What is it that's here through all the different identities you inhabit and all the ways you constellate in relationship with different people? What is here through all of that? What? I'm asking you as a question for you to investigate. Okay. We got it? Good. So let's just sit for a few moments. So again, this is meant as a practice group, which means hopefully you are letting this thread of awareness, which is more than a thread, this ground of awareness be something that you're in relationship with throughout what you do during the week. Whether you're meditating, quote unquote, or not. And then we can gather together and we can talk about what we learn and what we discover and what we experience. And we can share our confusions and hopefully have some of them cleared up a little. So may each of us in our own way continue to investigate reality and to look deeply into our own experience, into our own mind and body. And may we be willing to see things as they are. And may this clear seeing and this clear knowing free us. And may this be for the benefit, the welfare, and the benefit of all beings everywhere. So when I'm in Iowa and people talk to me, I always say, I'm just visiting. That'll be a good thing to say to yourself when you're in a state. You say, I'm just visiting. And now I'm just visiting this one. I'm just visiting this one. Was that a good enough dad joke? Yeah. Okay. I'll see you all next week. Oh yeah, we have, if you have time to stay and help put things away, that's great. We have our donation basket in the back. And if you ever want to come early at 6:30 and help us set up, always use the hands. So thank you.